Early contests build momentum for 2024 contenders seeking the White House. C-SPAN offers unfiltered coverage of events leading into early primaries and caucuses. Get access to speeches and results with the free app, C-SPAN Now, or watch live on the C-SPAN networks.
Why wait to see if you'll get something you like this Valentine's Day when you can go to BlueNile.com and find something you'll love? Whether you're looking to treat yourself to a little winter sparkle or show a galentine how much you appreciate them, Blue Nile offers a wide selection of high-quality designs, expert guidance, and free 30-day returns for the ultimate peace of mind. You can even design your own jewelry. Right now, save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Welcome back to Haunting History Podcast. This is your host, Kat. And for our bonus episode, we decided to bring back Billy, who is the psychic medium who did a reading for Jocelyn and her mom. Once we started this whole thing, Jocelyn had contacted Billy to do a reading and see what he had gotten. So with me today is Haley, of course.
Hi.
And Jocelyn.
Hello.
And Billy, the psychic medium.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
And I am going to have all of Billy's contact information on our episode webpage. If you want to contact Billy for a reading, I'll have all of his contact information for you also. So, Billy, go ahead and tell us about the reading that you did for Jocelyn.
So, in my history of doing readings, I do have to say this is one of the most unique and also frustrating cases. I'm not typically a psychic investigator of any sorts, but I do seem to get dragged into them here and there. So keep in mind, I'm not an investigator. My reading is not like this is what happened. It's simply what I was getting from spirit that day. So right off the bat, when I talked to Jocelyn and her mother, before the reading even began, I was like, oh crap. I was getting the vibe of nothing is what it seems to be. All right. So whenever I do a reading and that is the situation, that's the feeling I'm getting. I know that it's going to be long and sorted and I really have to pay attention and listen. So without any of the information from the case, I just had Jocelyn's first name and phone number, and that was it. So right off the bat, I could tell that there was somebody that was taken far away from their family, kind of, isolated away from their family by what I was getting as a narcissist. And then and I asked the family, was there a weakness in the relative? Was there mental health issues or why was I getting that this victim, this missing person was seen as an easy target? And we kind of went into the whole, well, she had seizures, she had epilepsy. So I was like, okay. So right off the bat, I felt that there was a narcissist taking kind of control of a more, an empath, a white light, a more free-spirited kind of person. So then as the reading went on, I asked Jocelyn and her mother, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Was there did this gentleman have family down in California? Did he have a father and brothers or, because I saw a group of men in my mind, you know what I mean? Right off the bat, I had a very uneasy feeling, and I felt like a group of men were guilty of covering something up. Something had happened, and there were kind of like shady men who were involved with making sure that their stories were straight. I felt like there were a lot of scripts involved. There were a lot of people having the same exact story. And if you listen to your podcast, and if you did the investigating, if you didn't notice that all of the guys had the same exact story, like, oh, the good-looking gardener. Oh, the good-looking gardener. Every single person seemed to have had a scripted answer, And right away I was like, oh my God, who's this father? I felt like the father was a key factor in the whole, oh, the police investigation was really shoddy. Oh, there were big holes in the plot, and I know it's from a long time ago, and it's playing a game of phone because there's missing holes in the entire story. And this is an investigation from 40 years ago, so that makes sense. But I feel that the father definitely had a a big part in why there were holes missing, why everybody's stories seemed the same. So what else about the reading?
What
So that was go on. Say.
How do you get her? Like how do you feel about her? Like what?
Okay, so so here's the deal. So it was literally right after I was to the family, like, oh my God, I was like, were there, did he have family down there? Because I feel a bunch of men, and they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, like we're on the right path. Because literally, I envisioned her energy, and all these men kind of like entered the room. Okay. The other weird thing was, and this is right when it happened. I felt like there was some sense of she worked all the time, like she was bringing in the money, like making money, and maybe like because I asked the family, I said, oh, she worked a lot. Was she, and I went to see, was she in the entertainment industry? Did she do something in the entertainment industry? And both of them, Jocelyn and her mother said, no, she didn't work. He worked. He was a mechanic. And I was like, oh, weird, because I'm getting that she worked a lot, And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at a spirit in my bedroom who looked like Stevie Nicks, and she's kind of like dancing and, she was doing something with her hands. And I'm like, what the hell? So I said to them, like, did she look like Stevie Nicks? Was she a free spirit? Did she do something with her hands? Did she do sign language? Or what am I looking at here? And they're like, she did look like Stevie Nicks, and she was an artist, And I was like, all right, well, that makes sense. Then Spirit said to me, her, her, whether it be her spirit or my spirit guides or whomever, like I hear things in my head, I get visions, I get, feelings. But I literally heard, it's not important to know all the details, all right? And the sense of she would make sure that everybody in the room was comfortable and happy before she herself was, And so at that point, with the whole work thing, with the whole she had a job thing, I was kind of shut down by spirit, okay? So that's why, like when I asked them, did she work? And they're like, no. And then, her spirit, that spirit kind of shut me down.
So what does that typically mean to you then, if that happens?
What'd you say?
What does that typically mean to you when that happens? Because her work is kind of...
is I don't push. You know what I mean? Like, what it means to me is there's things that, spirit doesn't want their family to know. It's happened in tons of readings before, like especially how the manner of death or what they thought in their last moment. A lot of the times the families will come up with their like comforting, healing moments. Like, well, this is probably what she felt when they were passing. You know what I mean?
Right. And
families start to heal. So I don't want to be the asshole who comes along with and be like, well, wait a minute, she felt this when she was dying.
Oh, I get it. So do you think
completely respects what the living feel,
Right.
And so I feel like she was just like this hippy dippy, cool, free spirit surfer girl who made some decisions and got into maybe things that she wasn't necessarily built for, if you will, And I don't know, like she wouldn't let me push on the work thing. Okay.
Because her work is,
so I feel like perhaps she got aligned with the wrong people. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Okay. Because her work is a mystery to us. She never talked. Her work is definitely a mystery to us because her work, she never mentions in her diary that she works. And the only mention is at the end of the diary when John says that he was talking to the two ladies who said she was making $60 a night. And he said, I think that's extreme. Like, I think that's an overstatement. And so for all of us, because we were like, she never mentioned that she was working. So what you're saying is that she may have been doing some kind of work that her parents may not have been proud of.
Right. Like, and see, and I don't want to paint some, person who can no longer speak for themselves. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, she's doing some shady work. But I feel like there's something that she doesn't even want anybody to know. You know what I mean?
And it didn't pertain to her death. So she's like, it doesn't matter.
Right. Like it's one of those moot points. Like, why the hell should we even know about this? It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And it's going to affect how people look at her. Just kind of change the thought of her being gone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah, so like, and that's why I totally respect that. And there's some psychic mediums who are like, no, I will dig up every fact. And I'm like, no, why? if a spirit tells me something, I listen to them, you know?
Yeah, and if it doesn't have anything...
But when you brought it up in your case, it was very, very, like, all my hair stood up. Because I was like, she did work. I knew she worked, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Because from the first days of reading, in the back of my mind, I've been like, she had a job. I know she worked. You know, I wonder what it was. And, you know.
But she doesn't want you to know what it is.
When you're talking about the Roccos, always watching the kids, like, I can envision it and feel it. Like, I'm dropping off the kids and I'm going somewhere where, you know, going to work. That's how it always felt to me. Like, she wasn't always surfing or skateboarding. That's how I feel. That's my opinion. What
do you get about the Rocco friendship?
So, okay. The one huge thing I get is that I empathize with them and I'm very compassionate toward their situation. I feel like they weren't very close. I feel like they had, like, you know, they were older than them. So they had, like, maternal and paternal feelings for these people, and they were trying to help out this couple. You know what I mean? They were friends. I feel, and they're living, and I'm not going to put any, this is my opinion, is that perhaps they do feel like they are protecting her in some way with keeping what they know or, not sharing all their stories, Yeah. I feel like they've got a maternal, paternal, like, protection going on about her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they were family.
They're protecting her memory of in some way, which I 100% respect. But I do believe, like you said in one of your podcasts, that they could have one story or one word that could change everything. I do believe, and we'll talk about the surfboard thing in a minute, because that's my sign that this actual, thing is that somebody out there has the information, and they don't realize, like, how much they could help in the, get to the bottom of what happened,
So it could be them that have information that could help Jocelyn and her family, but they don't realize that they have that. They just think that their information is just, not important, right. But it could be really important.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, like, even like murders that happened, or, any kind of history that happened a week ago, like from today, like last week, there's a murder case going on in my neighborhood where there's like, were you here on Tuesday, August 8th, at blah, 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 people have information. They just doubt their information and they don't want to contact tip lines. They don't want to contact the police because they feel like, I sound like a lunatic. What if I'm wrong? I feel anybody who feels they do have a tip, just call, just contact somebody. Any information could be the one thing that changes the entire investigation. Because I will tell you, let's go to when Jocelyn read me the report and what John said about dropping her off at the airport.
Yeah.
As she was reading it, every hair in my body stood up. I think I even told Jocelyn, her mom, I'm like, my nipples are so hard they could cut glass. My legs were like on fire, but the rest of my body felt like it was running cold. Like my veins felt like they went ice cold. All my hairs were standing up, and it's an absolute 100% lie. Like,
it never happened.
She never went to the airport. Never, like, that's the one thing that Spirit was like, no, this is not true. None of it happened. I don't believe she left the apartment that night, and there's absolutely no airport visit, She and the children never went to the airport that day. I can assure you that and I never say anything I say is 100% real or correct, but I will say 100% I know that she didn't go to the airport that day.
You don't get that she's alive, and you don't. How do you feel about the boys, though? Do you think that they could still be alive?
So I told, and it was really hard doing the reading because even though it's been 40 years, like, I don't know. Jocelyn's mom did a recording in the last one, and she's, this woman who, a sister went missing 40 years ago, and as humans, we're like, oh, it's 40 years ago, But as a family member, that's 40 years of wondering what the hell happened to my sister,
Right.
It never goes away.
Right.
And you don't ever lose that pain, that mystery that's always lurking in your feelings, parties and whatever. So I had a hard time doing this part of the reading, but I have this friend, and every time I'm doing a reading, not every time, but most times, she'll like call me or text me and be like, "Are you doing a reading soon?" I was like, "Oh my God," because we're kind of like psychically connected, I guess. And she goes, "Can I ask you in your reading that you're doing today, are there children involved?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Why?" And she's like, "Well, I feel like there's dead children involved." And I was like, "Oh," you know what I mean? So, and she's usually pretty connected to me. But when I kind of went over this with Jocelyn and her mother, and but nothing, nothing's coming through for me at all, really, with the kids. Like, no spirits are coming through, so I don't really know what that says, so you can take it any way you want it. But like, her dead spirit definitely came through, because I was like, who is this Stevie Nicks looking girl dancing in my bedroom all of a sudden, and it was definitely a spirit who's crossed over. So I will say with 99% certainty that was Deb's spirit that came through. As far as the boys, she didn't come through with a message for them, so I always say, in a sense, no news is good news, but I can't be certain on any of that,
Wouldn't she have given you some kind of like message or something for her sons if
that's what I would say, like that's what I would think, but I'm telling you, as far as long as I've been doing this, and spirit, there's I can't guarantee anything comes through. I can't control anything comes through, and sometimes spirit will tell me the most random stuff that does not matter to anything, so like, I would think personally, like, I'd be like, yeah, you tell me your kids are alive and I'll hunt them down. You know what I mean? Find them. But that's not really how spirit works. So I can't be certain. You know what I mean?
Right. I should mention too, when you did the reading for Jocelyn and her mom, they didn't even tell you that it was a cold case or it was a missing persons case. They didn't tell you anything.
Right. Yeah. So Jocelyn, and she called me too. And I was like, oh, and I have the voicemail too, where it's like, "Hi, my name is Jocelyn. This is my phone number. I was wondering if you'd be interested in doing a reading for us. She said, it's kind of like a cold case thing in our family." And I was like, oh, maybe they lost their golden retriever last week, because most of the time it's something really random when people call like that. So Jocelyn, just so you know, this isn't kind of a cold case. This is a huge cold case. But,
information.
What'd you say?
She was nervous.
I was nervous to give up too much information.
Yes, I have a huge thing about it. I said, don't tell me anything, because she said kind of a cold case. And then when I texted her back like that day, and I was like, okay, do not, I'll do a reading for you, but do not tell me anything more. She's like, okay. So I literally had her name and her number, which is how I do my reading. I don't want anybody to give me any information. That's why I was hesitant to listen to the podcast, because I was like, well, give me a couple weeks, I want everything I can get from spirit before I start flooding it with human ego. You know what I mean? Like stories and facts and, reports.
Now that
I always like the most authentic, raw, information I can get from the spirit side. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Now that you've listened to the podcast, though, did it change anything about your reading, or? I mean, it confirmed some things.
God. Well, it added the human element, because I'm a total empath. I am a huge crybaby. I'm a huge, when it's humans involved. So it changed a lot. Definitely one of the things that it gave a lot more human component to the reading. Okay. So for instance, the crowd of men that I saw, that kind of went around her energy with stories and with, changing, these scripts and changing information and making sure everybody had, had their story straight. I feel like, and I'll say this, and I hope I'm not trying to desecrate anybody's memories of anybody or any reputation, but I do feel like John's father had a lot to do with whatever happened. I feel like the boys, just kind of, John kind of went along with what his father's, directed him to. Okay. Because in the reading, I was like, I do not like, even after the reading, I was talking to you guys, we had a couple phone conversations. I was I don't like the father's energy at all. I feel like he was a manipulator. I feel like he was very harsh. And I feel like he definitely ruled with an iron fist, and people listened when he did. This whole gardener story, I feel like was very concocted because in 1979, I asked my dad, whatever, he's 70 something. And I asked him back in the day, would you guys go around calling somebody really handsome gardeners? And he's like, no, we wouldn't. It just seemed really off that everybody's like very good looking gardener.
The maintenance man.
And really,
you're talking about the maintenance man, right?
Yeah. Sorry, the maintenance man.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, the maintenance man. It just seemed very scripted, and every time I envisioned it came down from one person. So I feel like the father was like a puppet master of some sorts in all of this, if that makes sense.
Is there a chance? Would you get a feeling if something happened by accident rather than design? Like maybe they got in a fight and it got out of control.
So I wanted to. I definitely wanted to take it. Like I wanted to give my final opinion on it.
Okay.
Without like it being a finale, because as long as I'm alive and spirit keeps coming through to me, if death comes through to me in a year, sometimes these things take years,
Yeah.
I will contact you guys. I will contact whomever and be like, this is the dream I had, that was it.
Okay.
But what I feel happened, what my personal opinion on it is that, I feel like both sides, I feel like Deb and John kind of got carried away with like their, because they both kind of had like personalities, strong personalities. And they kind of seemed like they both kind of had their own, minds and mindset and how they lived their lives, right? And I believe that they did love each other, but I believe that there was a disconnect, okay? And I believe, which there was drug use involved. And I believe that, there was mental illness kind of creeping in, if you will, caused by outside influences, like drugs and, epilepsy and whatnot. And I feel like they started to get there was an erratic feeling. So I feel like perhaps there was a fight one night or somebody didn't agree with what somebody else was doing with their life. I feel like there was a fight that kind of became extreme. There was an accident involved. Perhaps she had a seizure that caused her, to fall, or somehow, just a fight kind of got out of control and then something happened. And I feel like, there was a call made to the father who helped, clean things up, if you will, kind of orchestrate a plan and not, in a story, if that makes sense.
No, it does, except what about the boys? What happened to them?
That's exactly, I don't know. I don't know if it's because I have a soft spot and I'm like, I don't want anything bad to have happened to them. But I also don't feel like, I feel like when I was hearing the statement about going to the airport, I feel like the reason that, my body reacted the way it did was because it was absolutely not true, because the story had already ended for them in a sense. But I don't want to be the person to sit here and say, hey, to Jocelyn's family, like, don't have hope that they're still out there. I want you guys to have hope, till the day you take your last breath. Like, I want, as long as you're here, I hope that the kids come through. But as far as my psychic ability and the way I feel in my heart is that night, the night that they were supposedly driven to the airport, I feel like it was the end of the story for all three of them. That's how I feel.
Hey, Billy, I have a question.
Yeah. Yes.
So do you think it's possible that maybe she's not showing you what happened to the children because maybe she had already passed before she knew what could have happened or saw what could have happened or anything like that? I mean, do you...
Absolutely. And like, I also wonder, because that's an absolute really good question and a really good point, because I was also thinking because it was so weird how her spirit showed up and kind of like was like, why don't we just stop talking about this? Why don't you stop thinking about it? I wonder, did she send the kids off to live, with somebody else because she knew that her time was was ending? I don't know. So I absolutely 100% agree with you that perhaps she just can't tell me because she doesn't know, because she was, she was crossing over, or she, yeah, I 100%. agree that could be, a possible situation.
Interesting. This is kind of like Jocelyn. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You know how we've talked about maybe like one night they were partying and she had a seizure and he could have even walked away from it. Like, well, this is your fault. You're having a seizure. And then went back and found her dead or something. Do you know what I mean? Like where it wasn't.
Maybe I don't know. I've come to a lot of conclusions over all of this, but one of the things that I thought could have been possible was that maybe he was partying, maybe they both were partying, maybe she had a seizure, maybe she fell, maybe something happened to where she passed. And my thought was that he freaked out because he spent time in prison. He wouldn't want to go back to prison. That possibly he freaked out, and instead of calling the police because he didn't want to be incriminated, he called his father, and they came up with a plan. But I don't know. You know what I mean? That's just I can't say. I don't know, John. I never got to meet my aunt, but this is just
Ideas
that I guess have come up in my mind of what could have possibly happened. I can say that I don't see, and I've never gotten the feeling that John was this cold-hearted killer or something like that. I don't view him like that. I do believe that he loved my aunt and he loved his boys, but I guess you don't know what someone is capable of when they're under the influence of something else and their back's in a corner,
or like premeditated.
Exactly.
Do you get any feeling that it was like a premeditated thing?
No. I'll say that, right. Like I said, I'm not an investigator. I'm not a cop but I will say that there's always been the underlying narcissistic personality. All right. And that comes with anybody who's addicted to drugs. You know what I mean? It kind of like in the psychic reading that comes through. A lot of people who are addicted to drugs, come through as narcissistic in a sense, because when we're on drugs, when people are, humans are on drugs, it's very narcissistic. We have our, the illness is selfishness, right? It's about consuming something that makes us feel better. So he always kind of came off with like, he was a little bit, he didn't always tell all the truth, and perhaps deeper down, he was a little darker, but I don't feel like it was like a murder. I don't feel like he was like a sadistic murderer. I do feel like something happened, like Jocelyn just said. I feel like something happened, and instead of doing the right thing, like call 911, call the police right away. I feel like he feared for his own safety and, his protection, not wanting to go back to jail, not wanting to go to, deal with the police. And he did kind of make this wrong call, and I feel like he reached out to the wrong people to help clean up the situation instead of doing the adult correct thing to do, so that everybody could find healing and the families could all just be like, all right, she's gone. You know what I mean?
Do you think there'll ever be healing for the family? Do you think her body will ever be found? Or
I am not a huge guy who's like, I look for signs and everything. Like, I know people are like, my gas station receipt said this, so I think it's a sign from my father. That's cool, but that's not me. But, and you guys know the story, but I have to. So in the letter, one of the last letters she wrote, where she drew the surfboard, right? You guys have known the story, but I don't know if Haley knows this story. When I was driving home from Michigan, I was driving back to Ohio that day, and I literally had just said, why am I doing this in, investigation? I've never done this. Am I capable of even doing this? How does it work? Blah, 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 blah. I was really doubting myself. And I literally said, give me a sign if this could help in any way, or if there's anything that could come of this. And like I told you guys, on the other side of the highway, there was, and remember, this is Michigan, up in nowhere near ocean. There was a guy on the other side of the highway who was picking something up off the ground that fell out of his pickup truck. And it was a surfboard with the side broken off and a hole in the middle, just like the picture that she had drawn in her letter. And I think I texted Jocelyn right away. I pulled over at the next rest stop. So I take that as a sign that, spirit is kind of like, something will come of this, all right? like I said, you have already, I'm sure, set such a vibration of, that it's causing, the butterfly effect everywhere. I know that I personally get a million messages now, like, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I'm like, right on the Facebook, because I don't understand that story. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know that you've inspired hundreds, if not thousands, of little investigators out there who are like, I want to help save the world too, and that aren't looking into this. You know what I mean? Right. And I feel like it will keep people talking and people looking around, which starts to uncover more truth. You know what I mean? So I feel like as much as I can say, I feel like you have started something that won't end until maybe there is a resolution. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, it does, because Jocelyn and I have believed from the beginning that we were brought together for a reason, right, Jocelyn?
Yeah, definitely. I think that
there you go. Absolutely.
Something was pulling us together for this all to line up the way that it did, and for us to click the way that we do when we talk about things and bounce thoughts or new information we come up with, the way that we can communicate with each other. And it's, we're just opposite enough to where either one of us can bring light to the darkness that somebody else is thinking. So
yeah. I agree that you guys, from the first night I talked to both of you, I was like, wait, what is the hell is going on here? You were definitely brought together for a reason. I'll tell you that as a psychic. And I will tell you as a human being, you both get really frustrated. I can hear it in your voices, but you are doing so much more than anybody's done in 40 years on this, so you guys, you two are just, I don't know. I just think you're really great, and you are going to, I don't know, there's going to be a change that comes out of this. So I know you're frustrated with how frustrating the case is, because honestly, a couple of the other missing person cases that I've helped out with, it was so much easier, This one is a whodunit kind of. It's kind of crazy with all these twists and turns. But I feel like you have started something, and I feel like it will bring more resolution, and there will be more revelations as the days go on and years go on.
Thank you so much, Billy, for doing this with us.
Yeah, thank you, Billy. We really appreciate it very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for. I'm honored to have been part of it. Like I said, if I ever get anything in the future, I will definitely contact you. Okay.
That'd be amazing. And then
sounds perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.